Hey, how's it going? This is your Daily Sweet Talk for April 13th, 2023. Lately, I've been really into Popeye. Been on a bit of a Popeye kick. Um, which partially due to the video I was working on where I had a tangent about Donkey Kong. It's already released now. I don't know if it was released by April 13th. The days on these videos are kind of arbitrary right now since I'm way behind, and also recording in advance and whatever. It'll be evened out eventually. It should be obvious. I mean, because I didn't get these shoes by April 13th, and it's pretty obvious I'm recording this on April 24th if you watch my streams, because I'm dressed like I. Anyway, I've been really interested in finding out stuff about Popeye. I feel like maybe I already knew this when I was looking into it anyway, but it's something I've been thinking a lot about. There's one crucial piece of Popeye lore, and anyone who's really has more than a passing interest in Popeye, who's not just like, oh yeah, Popeye, that famous cartoon character, I like Popeye, Popeye's cool. Anyone who's more interested in Popeye than that probably already knows this, but for anyone who doesn't know this, I think it's really interesting and crazy. So I'm just gonna say it right now, and if anyone, so I don't know if this will be useful for anyone who's into Popeye, but if you want to watch anyway and correct me on anything, I'd be really interested in learning more about Popeye. So picture Urkel. Urkel was a character on Family Matters, the sitcom Family Matters, who was just a neighbor kid. I don't even know if they were around in the first episode. And eventually, by the end of the show, Urkel was like the main character. All the stories were centered around them. And Urkel pretty much took over the entire show. Now, imagine a world where it became so popular that Urkel, it was just around forever. Urkel became the title character of the show. They renamed it Urkel. There was a line of movies about Urkel that was just called Urkel movies, which were wildly popular and influenced cinema greatly. And then they were going to make an Urkel video game, but it got rebranded, and it was one of the first video games of all time, and it influenced the entire medium of gaming, and that Urkel clone became the biggest video game character of all time. You with me? Did you follow all that? I was really talking about Popeye, not Urkel. Everything I just described is the origin of Popeye, basically. Popeye is a comic strip character. Not everyone knows this. That's I guess maybe people who just have a passing interest might know Popeye's a comic strip character. And Popeye originated in the comic strip Thimble Theater, which started in 1929 or sorry, 1919, I think. Yes, 1919. And by 1929. Popeye was introduced 10 years later in 1929. Originally, it was centered around olive oil and ham gravy. And you can just find this information anywhere, but I find it really interesting and I want to share it. And I'll probably talk about it again and again and more and share it with anyone who's willing to listen because I think it's really interesting. To me, anyway. It was centered around olive oil and ham gravy. And olive oil is, of course, known now as Popeye's love interest, but they were the main characters. They were an item, and there was one storyline where Ham Gravy had to charter a boat, and the captain of the boat was Popeye, and then Popeye was gone after that storyline was done. But so many people wrote in that they wanted Popeye back that not only was Popeye brought back, but they kind of replaced Ham Gravy as the central character. Ham Gravy was like written out almost entirely, I think. Became Olive Oil's new love interest. Eventually got into cartoons, and in less than 10 years after Popeye's debut, think about how the fact that Popeye, it was 10 years until Popeye was introduced into the comic, and then less than 10 years later, they were one of the biggest cartoon stars of all time. At that point, they had probably already been past their peak of cartoon stardom, and at one point were like the biggest cartoon character in the entire world, in less than 10 years after the comic had been running for 10 years. And now nobody remembers Thimble Theater. Certainly no one remembers Ham Gravy. I find that really fascinating. And then Donkey Kong happened, obviously, of course.